first TV show was The Other Two for Comedy Central. And we shot that in 2018. It was like, you've never done television before.
Right.
How is it going to be like working with a bigger crew?
Right.
And I said, you know, the department heads are the same. You just have more money and you have more resources. So I'm still talking to the production designer. I'm still talking to the DP. The actors are great actors. So I'm still talking to these people. They just have more people. So it doesn't really change my job. I just have more resources like that. That's what money is allowing me. Of course, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's what I said in the interview. And it was still hard. And I didn't get the job. A few weeks later, I think somebody dropped out. And it was a little last minute, and then I got to fill in, and the more happened behind the scenes, I'm sure, but that was the first time, and I was like, all right, can't this up.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is a podcast on directing for anybody that's quite simply ever watched anything. Pete converses with a wide range of fellow directors, writers, actors, showrunners, producers, executives, and more on a journey to determine just what makes a good director and why we'll always need stories. The Director is Pete Chatmon's digital studio, built on the pillars of craftsmanship that ensure a unique vision. I'm talking about story, innovation, perspective. Learn more about The Director, and better yet, get your official Director's Chair wear by visiting www.drctr.video. That's drctr.video.
All right, people, welcome to episode 19 of Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon. And our special guest today is Anu Valia. She is a writer-director. First off, she's a human who likes other humans, and that's what you'll find if you visit her website. But she's also a writer-director and sometimes actor with a very interesting journey from Indiana to Hollywood. So we'll get into her journey getting started in comedy in a very ironic fashion as far as how she thought she'd get going in the industry. Her short film, Lucia Before and After, which won the jury prize for U.S. fiction at Sundance and screened at over 30 film festivals around the world. And it's brought her to not only shows like Mixed Dish and Nora from Queens and the First Wives Club. She's also been working on a pilot and doing a great deal of other work. Anu and I met back at NYU while I was working my desk job in the production office. And she's just one of those filmmakers that I kind of always knew would end up in this position. And I was able to kind of keep tabs on her by my producer and editor, Tristan Nash, who was always kind of speaking her praises and collaborating with her as well. So here we go, episode 19 of Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon with our guest, director, writer, and human, Anu Valia.
Roll sound.
Speed.
The interview. Take one.
Action.
I've always pronounced your name Anu, but is that correct? Or
You can say that. You can say Anu. You can say Anu. Whatever you feel comfortable doing. Whatever you feel comfortable doing.
I will only do how it is supposed to be done.
Because I have a whole thing about, you know, we could go into this, but you can say Anu, like a new car, Anu.
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Perfect.
No, I'm big on that.
There's multiple ways.
I think you should. I'm a fan of making people go through the effort of doing it the right way.
I really, that's a long. I agree with you. And, Hassan Minhaj has like a whole wonderful, piece about this. Mm-hmm. And it's like such a longer conversation because I agree with you. But then also there's inflections in different cultures when you say people's names, and then sometimes when people say it wrong and it doesn't sound right, then you're like, but I agree with you.
Right.
I agree with you in my bones, and I'm still working. That's still a work in progress for me, but
Here we are. Well, let's welcome Anu Valia to the podcast. And so I ended up doing. It's been a busy few year,
Yes.
but as of the last couple episodes, I was going to say I always do an intro, but I found myself getting through the weekend prepping on shows and Monday morning coming and Tristan, our producer and editor, being like, "Did you do an intro?" And I'm like, "No, let me do this little iPhone video real quick." So I will add some intro here in the event that I don't end up doing one for the actual episode. And so I don't know when we met year-wise, but it's been probably over a decade.
Yeah.
I was working at NYU. You were a student at NYU. And you were, I met everyone probably through the production office window where I was signing forms. And I've watched through Tristan, our mutual friend. I was always aware of what you were doing. Sundance film success and catapulting into TV. And I've even followed you on some shows on Mixed Dish. And I started hearing about you from the people in the inner workings of ABC, which was great. It's always really dope to kind of be like, all right, you're catching on over there. So it's a pleasure to talk to you. And I think it'd just be cool to maybe rap about your specific journey and kind of how you've gotten to where you are right now. So that's a bit of an intro. I'll also say that I've only been away for about 5 minutes because I overslept. But here we are. So welcome to the pod, Anu.
I'm so happy to be there. You know, I overslept yesterday for this tells you the state of my working journey right now. I was supposed to go to a quarantine workout class and I overslept for that. And I was like, isn't it? Because you learn very early on that feeling in your bones if you oversleep for set for our working jobs, and so when the stakes are so low, it doesn't matter and it feels great. But right. Oh, P, I remember you through the window of the production office at NYU when I was a baby student, like 19 years old, and I looked up to you so much, and you were so encouraging beyond the production office. Like you were and I know you weren't just like that with me. Like the thing I admire about you the most, if I can introduce you to all of your listeners, is you as an artist, you make work that speaks to you and you always throw that ladder down and pull the next generation up. And I feel like that speaks to the reason you're doing this podcast. Like you could just, you're amazing, and the work you've been doing as a director is amazing. And I know in your TV work, in your own film work, and it's hard to spend time to bring the next group up, but it's so important, right? And I'm inspired by you in that way because that's equally as important as our own work, artistic ambitions, because, we're building a community. And so I really look up to you, and I hope people watching this know, because you really do a lot. I mean, I'm so lazy, and so it's like nice to
look,
see you
I
doing
appreciate that, and
so important.
Sincerely, and I think it's like the one thing I always felt that was a missing link at film school was this kind of like, a little bit of a dosage of reality of like what it's going to be like when you get out of the 9th floor of 721 Broadway, And also like there's a really different kind of unique challenge for someone that looks like you, someone that looks like me. It's not just about, cool film, that's great. Here are the keys to Hollywood, and I guess we'll kind of even get to that when we talk about your short film. But let's dive in. So I know we're zooming from I'm in LA, you're in Indiana.
I'm in Indiana.
And tell me about that. Is that where you grew up? Is that
Yeah. And so I come here I was coming here a little bit more often a couple of years ago. I'm working on a film that hopefully we were supposed to film at the end of this year, and now I think we'll film next year. But I'm just here being with family. But I grew up here. I've lived in Northwest Indiana since I was till I was 18, and then went to NYU and met you. And it's been such an I think something, especially, I feel like there's a tie with all artists where they always go back to their roots and whatever. There's always questions around your roots, right? Like always questions about where you came from, because that is all you know, and that is all you've kind of built the story of yourself based on what you've seen, what you know. And so my family's from India. I grew up in Indiana, and I have so many questions, not even directly related to me, but my entire worldview for 18 years was shaped in this area. And so every time I come back here, which is maybe like twice to 4 times a year, I always see it with new eyes, because I also go somewhere else and come back, and it's very interesting. It's a continual journey. But to speak to, just nobody knows who I am. So to introduce myself, I guess, like I consider myself a filmmaker and an artist. And in the past couple of years, I've been working in TV, which has been an incredible job, an incredible education, an incredible way to hone your craft. And I really enjoyed it. But to what you were saying, like, that doesn't happen. It's hard for people that look like us. And it's the strength of your work is incredible, but you need a community, right? Like you need other people to vouch for you and push for you and throw that ladder down. And that's definitely happened to me. And I'm not saying I can't be prescriptive, because everybody's journeys. That's the other thing, right? Like at NYU, they bring all these speakers to come in, and everyone was like, because it's like, what's the ticket? What's the secret? And it's like, everyone's story was so specific to them. Like it was always like an older white man who I would like be like in awe of, who, but, and they would be like, well, I snuck on to the Paramount lot. And then I was like, okay, well, that's not going to happen to me. So, so how am I, and in my journey is very specific, and your journey is very specific. But I think that like the one thing I do know is that it's luck, it's privilege in terms of who brought me up. But the more we can build that community and do it for others, I think we can grow the group of artists who are working and making a living making their art, which is important too. There's true diversity. Like it's truly many, many different people who have so many different backgrounds. And God, that made for a director, I'm really working on being more concise.
No, but look, that is not a requirement of this podcast. This is free flowing. What that makes me want to ask you is, what is it, or what was it rather, in Indiana and about your life that made you say, camera, right? Because, if you're from Indiana, you're supposed to play basketball or something. Yeah.
I tried to play basketball. Definitely tried to do that. And wasn't very good at it. But it's so both my parents are from India, and my dad, who is in the sciences, but is like is an artist at heart and a poet at heart, and now has since retired from science and taken up poetry. But when we were kids, we watched movies. I mean, I think this is a story a lot of people have, but we watched movies all the time. And when my dad came here in the 60s, he was like, he basically saw everything. Like this college he went to, he had no money. And so, because he was here on a scholarship and couldn't work. And so he would just see every movie the school offered for free. And it was like international films. And it's so funny. I feel like he saw more movies at his like science school than I saw at film school. He would see like a new movie every day, and it was all international films. And so that's all the movies when I was growing up, the movies that came out between like the early 60s and the 80s from all around the world were like the movies that he would show us.
Wow.
And so, and without any sort of, because he wasn't trying to get anything from it. He was just showing us movies that touched him when he was in his early 30s, and he was like, you children at 10, maybe you'll connect to Seventh Seal in the same way I connected to Seventh Seal.
Because Bergman's really for the kids.
Exactly. But he wasn't approaching it like, you need to know this to study it. He just said, this is a film about life and death, and you should watch it. And I would watch it being like, I really grew up with the thought that there was no difference between an art film and a commercial film. It was just, art is cinema, and art can touch you, and art can touch it can cross country boundaries. And, because we would watch Indian films, we would watch like European films, we'd watch like films from like China and Japan, and there was just no, it was just like, my dad was like, here's a movie, you should watch it. Right. We would like it. And I spent a lot of time being like confused by film. I thought that was like a natural space to be, is like, the plot isn't really important.
But isn't that like I find that's where we're landing now, right? Because I think the thing that this industry was kind of built on, it was much more a product than an exploration. And so with the rise of like streaming and just more platforms, basic cable having more narrative content, it seems like TV is the new novel. No one reads anymore. And with everything in such an episodic kind of capsule, it's like, well, now if we're going to do more things, we can't just be on the surface with 50 times more content. You actually have to get more specific and get more internal and follow the lives of people who before were just overlooked. And having some kind of basis and these distinctions are kind of, they are what they are, but they're kind of nebulous at the same time. It's like, typically it's more character driven if it's more of an independent film. Well, now that's the like superpower. Can you deal with character and then anchor that character in something that's a little bit more genre and find a happy marriage to make it be soapy yet smart, yet, with the skill of an auteur. Like, it's this weird place where I feel like the things that we learned in film school, and particularly if you had a particular kind of taste in content, it's like now there's a really open area for that type of director.
That's beautifully said. And I think what's so nice about all these the playing field is a little bit more open, and more people of different backgrounds, and ideally for me, like, people of different backgrounds can tell their story and other stories, and and not be pigeonholed to just like, tell me your story and then let's get rid of you. And now, just like, you can be like, you're being seen as like, great, very popular examples. A show like Atlanta is like a piece of art, and that's, I May Destroy You is a piece of art and I think a thing that those two shows have in common, I'm sure that there's a lot of EPs and a lot of people, but I feel like some people got out of the creator's way, right? Like they got out of their way, Fleabag, like they get out of their way, and you let these artists go off and make things, and that's that's the goal, I think, for all of us, right? It's just like, get out of my way. I want less people giving me notes, which is the goal. It's not always, but like, there was something I was going with, like, I really believe in the power of movies and TV as empathy machines. As you watch an incredible piece of work, whatever that is to you, like whatever thing you've last seen that just got you, and it's because you are like in that person's life, and there's no other greater escape. Like, isn't that I've never felt that besides when I'm watching like my favorite piece of
Right.
cinema or television show or,
Yeah,
it's like addictive.
I have this thing. I've been writing this book, and in the early chapters, like I talk about how I used to have a love of like music. Well, I still do, but like I was like, do I want to rap or do I want to be a director? And
Both.
my reasoning, and I guess now I could do both, right? Although I'm too old, but my reasoning was that, well, all the music kind of becomes synonymous with moments, right? But like, and feelings, right? But like, the best film can change your perspective. And not that it's impossible for a song to do that, because it has been done, but for the most part, like I'd rather toil in the playground of trying to make people see a new way of perspective about folks that they don't necessarily come into contact with.
Yeah. I love that.
So what was it, did you make any films back in Indiana? Like, how did you get into NYU? Did you just say, I've watched every movie and trust me, I'm good? Or did you have a portfolio? There
is so many things I haven't seen. I get very stressed with how many movies I haven't seen. But no, so I was taking photos a lot. Not like, I was taking photos. They probably were very bad. And I was shooting movies on like VHS cameras, and they were also bad. Like, I was so frustrated that my craft wasn't as good as I wanted it to be as a kid. And I was doing plays. I was like directing plays in middle school. But then when I was 15, I think before I was 15, I wanted to be an actor very badly. And my mom said I couldn't be an actor, which is a whole thing we'll unpack at some point. and then I got to go to like my dad. I really wanted to go to New York Film Academy. They had like a 1-week summer program. Right. And I couldn't believe it. You could go to Los Angeles and you could...
For New York Film Academy.
For New York Film Academy, you could go to Los Angeles and you could shoot on 16 millimeter film. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that I can't. And thank God my dad was so like, what a privilege. My dad paid for it. And I went for a week. And I was like, this is it. Like the feeling that, remember that, like that feeling. I'm so curious what that was for you. And maybe you've said it on another podcast, but I am curious. But that was like, there's no going back, Like that. And I think I chased that. And I feel like there have been only a couple times I've enjoyed doing this so much. Maybe I just haven't checked in with myself, but there have been a couple times where you're just on set and I was like, this is the happiest. Like, I will chase this feeling forever. Again, like what an addictive thing. Like, I will chase this forever because this makes me so happy. I feel so present. What was that moment for you?
Yeah, it was a similar thing. It was just probably earlier because I've mentioned how my high school had a Super 8 millimeter film program. And I always then say it wasn't a program, it was a class. But but it was their program. And yeah, we had these cartridges of Super 8 that you jammed into the back of the camera. We had a lab, so we would develop the black and white with the help of Mr. Chase. If we shot color, we would have to mail that to the one lab that they had a relationship with in Texas. I just remembered kind of making decisions on how to shoot things, and then him saying like, that was a really good solution to what you were trying to shoot. And specifically, it was this one thing I had someone coming down from a train platform in the town I grew up, and then the next scene they're on the street walking to a car, and I had them walk off the camera from the train platform and then on the street level, I went from the Bell Atlantic phone logo and tilted down as she walked up. And he was like, that was a really smart. And I was like, I don't know why I did that. Like, it just felt like that's what you, like, what am I going to show her? Touch the door handle, walk down 24 stairs, go through the next door. You know what I mean?
But even that, like, the idea of transitions and the idea of like, okay, now I'm going to show you new information and tilt down and show our protagonist. Like, it really, these are, it's wild that you think of that so early. You know what I mean? Like, that is a wild thing, because I know I wasn't doing that when I was 15. Like, but wow. It's like, it really, like, having somebody support you like that is incredible.
And the funny thing, I've never actually thought about, I've never made the connection, but in TV directing, the transition is like the one thing that you can almost do without anyone noticing what you're doing. It's all I got, right? Like,
the transition's what you have.
Got all the dialogue, did all this, and then I just wrapped 2 episodes of Mythic Quest, which is a show that I love.
Yes. And
I got my first cut, and the show is so like keyed in that they know what they want, know what they need. But they were just like, my editor, my notes on the editor's cut were like, well, I did this one thing. I did this one thing. And, it was like this cool, like tilt down from, actually, again, a tilt down from the palm trees, like to landing in front of a mic in the foreground, because it's like a character is going to give a big speech. And then a rack focus to the start of the scene, like 50 feet away, and then picking them up in coverage.
Oh, yes, we're keeping that trend. We're not just going to go straight into coverage. What are you talking about? We got to set the stage. Oh, my. And did it make the final?
We'll see.
Okay.
Because this is season 2.
Hope.
Yeah.
They'll keep it. It sounds like they'll keep it because it's like, what, an extra couple seconds, but it really feels like you added something, a real perspective.
Right. And some scope, hopefully, but
yes,
that's the defense we're always playing. So you go from Indiana to New York Film Academy in LA, which I remember seeing that one of my first trips out here. I was like, that's a little bit of an oxymoron. And then you went to NYU, and so what was like? It sounds like you were chasing that feeling of that New York Film Academy camera. Like, what were you chasing? What was your target when you got to NYU?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, like, also what a privilege to know what you want to do and then be able to go after it, to be able to go forward and chase that. Like, those 2 things alone are like, I feel very lucky to be able, because I was like, I'm going to be a director. There's like 3 Indian ladies who are doing it, and I'll be one of them. I'll be like the 4th. And now there's more, which is very exciting. But like Mira Nair is doing it, and so I can do it too. And isn't that something, like the power of having just having people who look like you ahead of you I think that's partly why I didn't want to. It wasn't that hard to convince me not to be an actor, because at the time I was like, I want to be like Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, but that's not going to be the thing I'm going to do. Like, that's not what Indians are, and we're doctors on screen and or like cab drivers or deli owners, and that's not true. But like, I just was like, oh, okay, I'll never see myself. So. Which now, what I'm so excited is like younger people for many different races and ethnicities are seeing themselves and can actually imagine. Like, it really is hard to imagine yourself as something if you haven't seen it before.
If you can't see it, right.
100%. And I was like, well, Mira Nair and Deepa Mehta and Grinda Chadha are the 3 I knew at the time. I'm sure there were more, and it's a disservice not to know their names, but those are the 3 I knew, and I was like, I'll be like them, and would read like every interview that they ever gave. And so, okay, so at NYU, I was like, I'm going to make art films, not because I thought that was like the pretentious thing to do, but I just was like, I really want it to be art. Like, I don't want to have to worry about plot. I don't want to have to worry about making money. I just want to make my art. I unfortunately, as you know, chose the most expensive art form. Didn't think about that. I didn't think about that when I was in school. And I think the nice thing about NYU is, and I'm curious if you felt this way, I feel like they really do encourage you to be an artist in undergrad, at least. Like, they better for worse. Maybe give you not all the skills you need to be a working artist, but I really was like, I'm just gonna do it. And then when I graduated, it was a lot harder. I think I'm sure I had a movie I'd written I wanted to make, and also I was like, but I'm not going to make it for like $20,000 and do a mumblecore movie because visuals are so important to me, and, you know, limited coverage and taking your time on set was just quite important to me. And like, you know, maybe we'll require a few more days than normal because we've scouted the perfect locations and we've got to, you know, it's just, I wasn't writing films that took place in like one house to maybe my detriment, but that just like, I didn't have a story there. So I couldn't get my films made, but then girls gotta work. So I had various like assistant jobs, and I was like, at some point in school, I was Brett Ratner's little brother's babysitter? But he had a nanny and he had a tutor, so I just hung out with him. Right. I was a very sweet kid. But anyway, so then I, it's like, that was it. Like, that was like a fun, weird job. Anyway, so I started my first like production job, which was, I don't know if you'd even call it that, was working at College Humor, because in New York, it was like easier to get like web jobs because I didn't know how to get into like television or films. It felt like a really closed circle that I didn't know how to crack.
And it is. Yeah.
It's like there's more things shooting in New York, but I also feel like you have to, like, someone has to know who you are. Like, I just had no idea. I didn't know how to become a PA on like a movie. I would hear like Spider-Man shooting or something, and I was like, how do you get there?
You just know how to be told not to cross the street when you walk up on that production. But how do you get that job?
How do you make friends with a PA and get it? I just had no clue. And friends of mine were, and I was like, how did you get it? And they were like, well, I knew someone. And I was like, damn, okay. But the people I did know were making web series, and College Humor at the time was in like 2010, 2011. They were working with a lot of UCB people. I had a friend at NYU who, again, it's like, what a privilege to go to a school that then like those kids go out and can get you a job. And so my friend Sam, he was a coordinator there. I think he started as a PA, and as the coordinator, he was like in charge of hiring like new PAs. And then I became a PA on College Humor jobs. I stayed there for a couple of years, and then became like a coordinator and then a producer, and then I like was an actor for them. And I think they needed like a brown person, so got to be in front on camera, and so. But through that, I started working with comedians, which was not something I really had like prioritized or thought about. And like, what a boon to work with improvisers who are like such present actors, you know? Right. And like getting to work with improvisers too on my own experimental short films, I'd be like, well, you know, I know you guys do comedy. Do you want to do like drama for a second? And, you know, I get to have some comedians in my own shorts. So I was sort of, at the time, like, you're juggling a million things all the time. Now I'm pretty lazy, but I used to be a lot more like I was producing stuff for College Humor and making my shorts with their equipment. You know, the classic, like, you see a camera, we have some lights. Let's make something.
When I met you, that was one of the boons of the desk job. You know, I could take out equipment until one particular person fucked that up.
Are you serious?
Because they took someone took a shot a project at the beach and got sand all in the camera package. And I don't remember what camera it was, but it was It was an expensive camera. And after that, they were like, no more of that.
That's the whole point of working in the production office.
That was the point. But also the relationships, much like what you were developing there at College Humor. So that's really cool, because also there's this thing about comedians, which is they're probably more in tune, and this is going to be a blanket statement, but let's just say the best comedians,
yes,
you know, are more in tune with their emotions and in being analytical about what they see than most people. So to turn the knob toward drama is actually it's already on. They just have the volume down on it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They just chose to like go at the topic through a comedic lens and understand fully how to, you know, it's like, what is it like? They say like passion is like love and anger or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a similar type of thing where the comedy is really just a delivery system for like fucked up pain, you know?
Right. And like, well, what you said about being so attuned, I think that's quite true. And also, again, right, like this is a blanket statement, right? But like there is, you know, I'm not a comedian, but I think like somebody who understands, there's like the tragedy comedy. Like you can't really be funny unless you understand things that are like deeply sad and tragic and ironic, because you can make that funny. So you kind of understand tone. You can be really good at understanding tone, I think. Not that you can't be if you're a dramatic actor, because dramatic actors 100% can, but that is like such a tool. And it's something that I think if I hadn't worked at College Humor and gotten into this comedy track, which is now as a TV director, that's what I do, are half-hour comedies. And it really, like, it was such a gift to get to work. And at the time, I think I was just like, get me to my like experimental film. That's all I felt so misunderstood when I was at College Humor. Like, and everybody would know that. Like if you talk to anybody there, I was an artist and I was trying to get my short films made. And this is just a pit stop on the way to my art. And it was such a gift instead. It was like, I'm so grateful for that time. Even though they never let me direct, but well, I don't mind saying that on the record.
Look at him now. Look at him now. So what did you go to next after College Humor? Because I know we're kind of barreling toward your short film, but like what were there any other significant steps before you made your short film?
Well,
Lucia, before and after.
Yeah. Well, basically what happened was I was writing a movie that nobody wanted to make. I'm still writing a movie that no one wants to make. But I left College Humor, and then I bipped and bopped around different websites, like different comedic websites, producing and directing sketches. I started to direct more. I basically was like, okay, I want to be directing now. Like I want people to think of me as a director. I want to direct it. And so for a while I was producing for money and just directing friends' stuff for free, because I was just like, I need more stuff that people, but I was producing sketches for free, but at the same time I was trying to make my own short films. And I made a couple shorts that didn't get to that many festivals, but I was proud of. And then funny enough, I was in Nicaragua with Aya Cash. So Aya was in this, our friend Paul Briganti, who's a wonderful, wonderful director and dear friend and is a director at SNL now. He was making a movie called Village People, which maybe now I think now it's called Big Brother Volcano, but he was making this movie in Nicaragua and Aya's one of the stars. And Paul, I was like, Paul, I want to be like, can I be in this movie? Like I want to play this. I just want to be, and I didn't have a job at the time. It was like, I had no prospects. Like it was a month. I was very depressed. And he was like, well, okay, you want to come to Nicaragua for a month? And
what year was this?
This was February 2016, I think. It was only a few years ago. So I think it was early 2016, I think. And so I was really kind of hitting a dead end. Like I was just kind of like, I want to make another short. I wanted to make my movie, but nobody was funding it. And I was like, well, maybe I'll make a short. I don't know. And so then when I was in Nicaragua acting in this film for Paul, and was like also PA, but was a terrible PA because I didn't speak good enough Spanish to actually be of help, like as like there. So I spent a lot of time just kind of waiting around, and I wrote Lucia Before and After, which is a short film that follows a woman who is traveling 300 miles to get an abortion. And she finds out when she gets there that she has to wait 24 hours because there's a 24-hour consent period before you can go back and actually get the procedure done. And she didn't know that. So she spends a day just kind of wandering around.
Right.
And I thought that was actually part of a film I was writing at the time, which I'm not working on anymore. But I thought the vehicle, because I'm a big proponent of the story you tell should match the medium it's in. Like you shouldn't try to write a feature and make it a short film. We learned that in school, right? Because who wants to watch that? But I thought that like, the journey of somebody going on like an anti-road trip, essentially, of like one day is a short story. It doesn't need to be longer than that.
Right.
And I made that, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to make this short. And I made that short in the summer of 2016.
Okay.
I think. Because I remember finding out I got into Sundance right after Trump got elected. So that's like that's the time. I just remember that's like, so I think it all was 2016. And
you were using your personal applause to wipe away tears in between.
I remember, because I couldn't believe, like Trump got elected. It was like the deepest, darkest time. And then personally, this film got into Sundance. It was just like such an interesting thing about like, why do we make our art? Is it for others? Is it for us? It's a question I think we are always thinking about. So anyway, then it went to Sundance, and funny enough, which is such a wild, so there were 3 judges. One of the judges at Sundance was Patton Oswalt, who is a comedian and a comedy director. I did not know he is a film nerd. And I remember seeing him, like, watching the movies, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, my movie's not funny. Like, it's probably not going to... And it won the jury prize for U.S. narrative shorts.
U.S. fiction.
Yes, and it's so funny because I was so surprised, and I was like, I was very surprised. But then, cut to February of this year, I was directing AP Bio, which he is on, and I just couldn't believe that I told him, I was like, you probably don't remember, but because of you and the other judges, like, you guys really changed the trajectory of my life, and I'm so grateful I get to now work with you. And he was very sweet about it, and he said he remembered, but who knows? But he was so sweet and so like, people pulling you up.
That's the journey. Like, I mean, it's funny because I have to remember, like, not necessarily everybody listens to every episode of the show, because I feel like there's some people who would be like, oh, here come that story again, you know? But,
no, everybody does listen. Yes. But some people are slamming these episodes.
But like, you know, it's not the same kind of like someone reaching back. Well, I mean, the meeting happened at a different point in life, but like right now, I'm prepping All Rise, and the star #1 of that show was in the short that I made around the same time you made your short. Simone was in my short Black Card, you know, and it is not, it does not miss me that I'm sure that her vouching for me and saying you should, you know, meet this guy was helpful. And obviously I had to do my work in the interim, and you had to do yours, right? But like, that's just the community of people that kind of propel the journey forward is one that you could never predict.
You're so that is a really beautiful. I love that. And also, how wonderful is it, because now the job you're doing at All Rise feels all that much more like a family. Like, it's not like, I'm sure you talk to.
Oh, this show is crazy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I do want to. All I was going to say is like, when I think when you're younger, and maybe even when you're older, you are just so focused on how do I get there and what does that mean? But the reward for work is more work, right? The reward for doing a good job on one show is getting hopefully a job on another show. And then that's more work. Like, it's not like, but so how delicious and wonderful to be on All Rise and to feel like a closeness, and you're not just like, oh, I don't know anybody, it makes the job better. But wait, what's this like? Like, what's it like?
Well, I mean, it's super dope, right? Because like, if I go through, I look at the cast list and I'm like, okay, so there's the number one, Simone, Wilson Bethel, who plays the DDA, Mark Callan, one of the other leads. He was in one scene, but in this digital series I did, American Coco, back in 2016, he was in that. Ryan Michelle Bathay, who I know and you know her from First Wives Club.
I love her. Oh,
she's in it, and I've known her since NYU.
Oh my God.
Simone's husband in the show, Todd Williams, was in a short I did after my NYU short, before my feature, just to kind of keep making things. And it's like, you just look back, it's like, man, I know. So if I start from him, and include Ryan. I mean, these are people I know going back into like 1999.
Yeah, these are like real people, like real close. Like there's time, we've simmered.
Right. Yeah, and it's just it's a beautiful journey. So if for anybody listening, that is something to be like, be rest assured, right? Like, you can't win the race without actually running it. So you have to just put one foot after the other, and your kidney's gonna hurt for a couple miles, but you keep going, and then it's gonna be your knee. But like at some point, you get closer to the finish line.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's also like, you need to find the joy in each job and each thing, because if you're always looking for what's the next,
right,
that's a great motivator, but you have to like enjoy the job you're on right now, or the short you're making right now, or otherwise you're gonna run out of steam.
And people can tell, right? Like, people can tell when you're somewhere you're not excited to be, that you don't want to be, that you're phoning it in. And, to this same conversation, there are jobs that I got where people recommended me that I never knew were looking specifically.
Wow.
But I know that everyone's always paying attention. And so, one like snide remark could be said in the company. Like, here's another example, right? Like, and this was one where I was like, oh shit, like, I need to do better homework of my call sheets, in all honesty, right? Because we were watching the Emmys last year, and I think I mentioned this when I talked to Rob McElhenney, and I'm like, man, this guy who won for Chernobyl looks really familiar. And so I looked him up. I looked him up, and he was Craig Mazin plays the character Lou in Mythic Quest, and I'm like, man, I directed this guy for like half a day, and I had no idea that that's who it was. And I love the Script Notes podcast. Like, that's my shit. I listen to that every week.
I gotta listen to that more. Yes.
It's really good. And so, but like, just imagine you were the type of person to not only not know, but also like be an asshole.
Ugh.
Like, or say something like crazy because you're like, oh, well, those people are out of ears range, but like, this person can overhear me saying X, Y, Z, and they're like, hey, that guy you got over there, you just have to,
yes,
you have to be on, you have to just be a person, as I always say.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ramla Mohammed, co-executive producer on Little Fires Everywhere, and you're listening to Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon.
How to Succeed as a Creative Professional is Pete Chatmon's upcoming book about his journey as a director. What started in 1993 has been a marathon full of persistence and creative pivots, transitioning from indie filmmaker to teaching at NYU's acclaimed film school, to running a production company, to directing television and commercials, and ultimately eyeing a return to the feature films that gave him his start. A mixture of how-to, self-help, and inspiration, this book will be for any person eyeing a successful career in a creative art. How to Succeed as a Creative Professional is coming soon.
So how quickly did Lucia before and after, that was what, 2017 Sundance, right? And so what was the transition like into television?
So this story I'm about to tell you is that every up and coming filmmaker, every filmmaker who wants to make a living doing this or just get their things made, really, I recommend listening to a lot of different people's stories because it's so specific, right? But it's all a marathon in terms of like you kind of collect people and experiences as you go. And hopefully you're not thinking of it like that. Hopefully you're just kind of living your life and being a good person. But yeah, when the short won Sundance, I was excited because I was like, I can get my movie made. I have this movie, We Strangers, that I'm still trying to make that again, hopefully we will film. But I was just like, oh, now I can get my film made. Like I wasn't thinking about TV, but it was not like that. I thought my life was going to change in just that. The only thing I wanted to happen was hopefully going to happen. And that didn't happen. Like I did get an agent, but because I had a manager
Did they
already.
immediately reach out once you won? It was like, who's this on my voicemail? Or, what was that process?
So I had a manager before, and the reason my managers who are wonderful, who I'm still with and are so good, I met them through Sarah Goldberg, who's an actor who's been in my shorts. And when we did another short together, not Lucia before and after, we did the short Drifters before that in 2014. And Sarah was pushing her managers to sign me from that short. So she really pushed me. And then those managers ended up signing me in 2016 before my short got into Sundance. They just took a chance. And so they were really instrumental in...
I'll say they didn't take a chance.
They didn't take a chance.
Right.
You're right.
They didn't take a chance, right? And I think that the thing that reps are driven by is they see the potential. And I think in you, they probably recognize someone who will continue to self-produce.
Right.
And so while
easy
we
sell.
easy sell. So I just have to say that really quick.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't mean to.
No. That was it. I interrupted you. I just want because it's always a mutual self-interest. And quite honestly, the people who are the entrepreneurial filmmakers are the ones who are going to be the best clients. Because we're going to give them something to use as an asset. And when they get you in the room, like I can tell from. This is probably the longest we've ever spoken, but like I can say like, oh, you could go in a room and you could represent yourself and you could do well in presenting yourself for a possible assignment on a show. And that's 90% of the job almost, right? There are people who are great in the room and not that spectacular in their episodes, and they just keep working.
Yeah.
That's
the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that though, because also for people listening, I think it is important. I wish I learned a little sooner that your representatives need to work for you, because that's how it works. And so I think it took me a little bit of time to realize that. But anyway, so God, I'm talking so much. So basically, so after Sundance, my managers were like, you should meet with a couple of people, and ended up signing with UTA, which was good, but it was hard. It was hard to get a job because I'd made this short, and people were like, you made a short. Why does that mean you can do anything else?
Right.
And so I was like, oh, surprised by this.
Yeah. How would you know how to just continue making scenes and putting them together? And can you stand by a camera for 5 days? Because we haven't seen that. It looks like this took 2 days. Yeah, I know.
Yes, I know. And I'm aware of. I look like I'm 10. I get it. Like I understand what you're seeing when you see me. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's going to take longer than I thought. So I was just like, okay, so that was, just to give you a timeline, that was like January 2017. My agents ended up introducing me to this comedian, Jenna Friedman, in maybe summer of 2017, who was doing a pilot for Adult Swim. So we did a pilot together. It was still like a non-union, but it was a pilot. I say that
which
because
is a defining factor. Like you can say she did a pilot, and that's a distinguishing thing.
But so Jenna was taking a chance on me because it was her first show with Adult Swim. It was my first show with television. She was like, I'll take a chance on you. And I was like, great, we'll do this together. We made the show together. Still, it wasn't until a year and a half later, because my first TV show was The Other Two for Comedy Central. And we shot that in 2018, summer of 2018. So it took a year and a half for me to get that job. And even that job, it was like I'd never done anything before. Sarah and Chris, who are the showrunners, really pushed for me. I love Jax and Comedy Central, who were incredible to work with. But it was, and they would admit this, it was like, you've never done television before.
Right.
How is it going to be like working with a bigger crew? Right. And I said, the department heads are the same. You just have more money and you have more resources. So I'm still talking to the production designer. I'm still talking to the DP. The actors are great actors. So I'm still talking to these people. They just have more people. So it doesn't really change my job. I just have more resources like that. That's what money is allowing me. Of course, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's what I said in the interview. And it was still hard, and I didn't get the job. I actually didn't get it. And then a few weeks later, I think somebody dropped out, and it was a little last minute. And then I got to fill in. And the more happened behind the scenes, I'm sure, and I'm sure there's a lot of the showrunners pushing for me, and Jax and Comedy Central also pushing for me. But that was the first time, and I was like, all right, can't fuck this up. But actually, I shouldn't say can't fuck this up, because that's not actually, I think, the right way. I believe this very strongly. When you're first time, tell me what you think. When you're first time or really new to TV directing, people aren't hiring you. Maybe some people are hiring you to give you a shot, but I don't think so. I think they're hiring you because you can add something. You're not adding experience. That's not what you have to add. What you have to add is a new way of thinking, something, and you also have to know your audience and know, it's a half-hour comedy. Everything can't be a oner. But, unless you're I don't know, but it's all going to get on the cutting room floor. But, I think the two things I really took from that is be confident about what you can add, what your vision is, because that's why you're the director. That's why you're on set. That's why you're asking, Wanda Sykes to listen to you. She's not doing it out of the she has to act, and she has to know that her director can tell her something. Right. But also then be honest about what you don't know and learn quickly. Right. Learn as soon as you make a mistake, learn so you can pivot quickly, because it's it's fast.
It's very fast.
And you don't want to get intimidated or too in your head, because it's not about you. It really is about making a good episode of television.
Right. That's an interesting, I find I'm often, I'm like water, in the sense of when I go to a job, I'm trying to understand what kind of glass I'm pouring myself into, right? And so a lot of times I think it's somewhat of a splitting of the difference between what you're saying, where it's I am trying not to fuck this up, but perhaps in my conversations with people about what I'm doing that's in the pocket, I want to show them that I have a perspective and that I get what we're doing. So while I may not try and say, let's shoot this in this really interesting way, you'll know from our interactions that I get what we're doing. And I feel like the first episode is, and it depends on the show. This is such a...
Depends on the show,
but
right?
For me, it was well, it was Grownish first, and then I did a Blackish after that. But like I had booked Blackish first, so I'll treat that as the first one. And I was like, I just got it. It's just got to look like the like best episodes of it. You know what I mean? Like it just has to look like that. I'm not trying to put any kind of like sauce on it. Like it just has to be in the pocket. And ideally you do that and because they're really there for the script. If I really can kind of communicate the script visually and block it well, let them shoot it how they shoot it. You know?
Oh, and blocking. Whew. Yeah.
And then and later, then when you get invited back, which I mean, and that just like a really good case in point, like as I came back, I've done 4 of those now. And I'll be back in a couple months. Like I started doing things like, all right, well, on this montage, because that's mine, it's not in any other episode. I want it to be a series of whip pans and it's going to be this and that and that and that. And they're like, okay. You know what I mean? But like on the first one, they'll probably be like, oh God, this guy, you know? So it's really trying to like thread a needle.
You are so there. There's not one. You are so right. Like that is such good advice. And I hope I want to put a pin on that because that is, you really have to be like water. You have to listen and learn. Each show is very different. And then the more you're on is similar. Cause I feel like I've seen episodes of Grownish that you've done. And again, Grownish is a very different show than Blackish. And cause I remember watching your episodes, some episodes you've done a few. And I was like, he's doing some really fun stuff with this show. Like I thought you were kind of pushing that show visually in a way that was very exciting, but still felt in the realm of the show. So it didn't feel like this person's trying to like do their own thing. It actually felt like it was expanding the show itself, which is, it's not about ego. It's about, this actually would make the scene, it would make the audience more into the scene, or the blocking's quite interesting. And, you know, and it's always, it is juggling a lot of things at once. And the thing you said reminded me of, I think it was like your first episode with Issa Rae, how she was like, they choose directors because they want these directors to put their own interesting spin on things. And I remember you saying, you know, you do enough of other type of shows and that gets beat out of you. And it's like a merge of those two because some shows want you to put a little bit more spin. Some shows are like, let's keep this consistent.
Right.
And sometimes you're on a show and the more you're on it, you can try some other things. And also by trying things, I don't even just mean with camera, with blocking too. And blocking is like the thing I think people maybe don't talk about enough in film school because blocking is actually the most important thing. Blocking's it.
That is it. You know, the other thing too, I mean, you know, I have a special effects meeting in 20 minutes.
Oh God, yeah, you gotta go. You're actually like working.
We're good up until 17 minutes from now.
Okay, you tell me.
But it's like we're doing this like kind of big stunt. And when you're it's like your first time talking to everybody, it's like, how much money do y'all want to spend? And you don't know. So you're kind of like, you're proposing what you want to do. And this is just my take. I'm sure other directors are like, well, I come in there and blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to figure the fucking room out, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, all right, okay, that sounds like you really want to do this. Okay, cool, all right, cool. So, all right, cool. All right. Oh, so VFX, y'all ready for that? Okay. And then like it's taken, this is like the third meeting. And now I kind of have a real handle on what it seems like they're willing to absorb.
Yes.
And how I can push that a little bit and frame my approach to match that because folks need to have money for other episodes also. And they will bring you back, which means more money for you if you're not the person that breaks the bank every time you show up trying to do wild shit that doesn't actually make the show a better experience for the people who watch it.
Exactly. 100%. Right. Because like you could do the coolest episode that looks amazing. And if all the actors hate you, you're not coming back.
Exactly. So what was it like for you going from working with Comedy Central to, let's just say broadcast TV, like a mixed-ish? Like what was like, how did those prior jobs lead to that job, you know, and like what was like the major difference for you as a director, as you kind of, I guess, had more resources, right? Because now, like with each kind of different platform, you have more time, more money, and more expectations, I imagine.
Yeah, I feel I've gotten really lucky with every show I've worked on, is that when they do hire me, I really do feel like there's a trust there. And maybe that's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because like nobody who really wouldn't trust me won't hire me. So I feel like it's still always a dance though, you know, when you are new to a set, you're feeling everybody out and you want people to know that you know what you're talking about, but you're also there to learn and to share and you trust everybody else. And it is just like a dance, and I do prefer doing multiple episodes at a time rather than just one at a time, because it gets you get to sink in. The actors also get to spend more time with you so they can relax. Like I'm a fan of doing that. But because with Mixed Dish, I did one episode and then I came back when they got additional episodes ordered.
Right.
But like that was an incredible experience. It was maybe like the 5th show it was like the 8th show I had done, I think. I can't remember, but it was the first broadcast show. And since then, I was working on a pilot for NBC right before the pandemic happened. And then that got shut down. That was my first time working on a pilot in that space. And that's awesome. A learning experience, definitely, even though we never got to shoot it. So who knows? But with Mixed Dish, it was so incredible because everybody's so... I didn't expect a network show to be so warm. Like everybody was so, I kind of expected it to be a little bit more like this is kind of how we do things. But it was just, and it was also just the people there, from the cast to the crew to the producers, they were like, we're here to support you. And that show is like, even though it was in its first season, it has a look that's been set, and you don't really need to deviate from it too much. I think maybe that show was the first time I'd worked with that large of a cast. I was new to working with that many people talking in a scene, blocking. Right. And maybe a couple growing pains of like where, you know, I remember a specific example. My first episode with them was like the Christmas episode, and there was a huge dinner table scene, and I think it was like 12 people in the scene, and 12 people talking, everybody looking at each other. And it was, the AD was incredible, Simone, but I knew it was going to go longer. It was scheduled for like maybe 3/4 of the day, half a day to shoot the scene. It needed a full day. And we ended up having to, we ended up going, we didn't go over, but we had to put half of the scene into the next day. So I was cutting the rest of so much, you know, we made it work. But it was just so, this isn't really a difference between network and cable, but it was just like, that was my first experience working with that many people talking. And it was wonderful. And I'm really happy with how it came out. But it was a bear of an episode. And what I loved, though, is everybody was really kind about it. They were like, oh, yeah, this is a lot of people talking. We're sorry. Yeah. Which I appreciated. But it was just, but, you know, you're just moving on your feet. Like, okay, this scene is like the whole third act. So this needs to be everything. Like, we have to spend time here, you know, and you have to get everyone's reactions. Like, you can't be in the editor can't be with the producers after you've gone and want to cut to this one person and you don't have their reactions. Like, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, they will not be speaking well of you at that moment.
That's the thing. Like, you're always, aren't you conscious of like, what are they going to say about me after the director's cut, after I've said that? Like, do they have the footage? And but I learned something new on every job. Like, you want to give everybody what they want, because in the end, you are working with the showrunners and trying to deliver a show that they feel is close to the show they've envisioned. But I've had people tell me, like, you know, if you don't want to shoot this one scene this way, don't do it. Like, don't give too many options for people to deviate from maybe how you saw this portion of the scene being cut. And I'm of two minds. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I feel, and this goes back to your earlier statement, I feel like I can, it gets so
it gets a little thorny. This may be
I know,
off the
like,
record.
I feel like I can control that by the blocking.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
like
yes,
because
yes.
if there's buy-in that, we are like we're here, we're close together at this moment, and then there's buy-in that you step away and now there's distance, and whatever the scene might call for, like depending on the show, I can shoot that in a way. I can shoot that blocking in a way that you can't separate it.
You're so right. Like if this person's walking away on this one line and you just need to follow that, like you can kind of, that's interesting. Yeah. Learn something new every time I talk to another director. You're right. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's like your insurance. And then at a certain point too, like if it isn't the most dynamic blocking, then it's your master shot and how you get into the scene. Mm-hmm. And that also, like, I feel like it's like we were talking before, right? It's like, I kind of have the most say on how we enter and how we leave. Mm-hmm. Right. And then within that, it's the blocking, which may or may not have buy-in from everyone as I saw it. But I can say, hey, we start here and we boom down and do a slow creep in on the master. And that may just be enough to set the table for the normal coverage that the show is going to collapse into. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what's fun though about certain shows where you're kind of like, where you get that opportunity to be like, all right, here's what we're doing. Yeah. And sometimes and they're kind of looking at you like, is that going to work? And you're like, that's actually the thing I chase. I love it's not like this idea of like holding it all in your like little magic cap, but being able to say, no, trust me, this will work. And then folks are like, oh yeah, that was dope.
Yes. That is such a great feeling because you don't always have the time or the space to do that. I also really enjoy if there's ever time to properly rehearse with actors. I feel like on half-hour comedies, it's been tough, but there are times where I'll just be able to be like, can me and the actors just get, like, instead of the, like, just reading the words out loud, like, can we actually, like, rehearse this for 10 minutes? And that is, like, those 10 minutes are so precious. You really feel like I did an episode of this show called Love Life that was on HBO Max, and it was supposed to be a bottle episode and it ended up not being, but so much of this whole episode took place in this like railroad apartment. Right. And it was just like the blocking is the only thing that's interesting about like we have to work this blocking because it is the only way I can tell this story. So this needs to be, and it was me and two other actors, and we really I think that's like the only time I really, really got to rehearse. Like we would have like half-hour rehearsals. Right. And it was, and the actors would I would come in with like kind of a plan, but that was also the first time I'd come in and be like, I think the actors are going to have a better idea of stuff, and they would have ideas. And then we would block the whole thing over and over and over again. And then everybody else came in, and then that was like a really fun shoot in that I usually have like such a plan and then throw the plan out, but we really developed the shot list and the blocking kind of on set because we had the time to do that. And I don't think I've ever had the time. It's just the time. It's not
it's the time.
The show's fault.
Right. It's just it's the demands of network or just television at all. Yeah. Well, I have two things I want to say. I want to, because I feel like this is by virtue of, I usually leave an hour and chunk because I never know how long the interviews will actually flow. And I think that we can keep going. So I want to bring you back to have a craft conversation.
Let's talk craft.
Because, and I don't yet know what that will be, but I just have found that like that's been really rewarding for people. Like the 10 Commandment episode we did, or like, getting into the nuts and bolts with an editor. I want to get into, maybe we'll talk about blocking and like have specific examples or something, but
I want to learn from each. I love talking to other directors about this stuff because I always learn. Like I will learn more from you, I'm sure. Because every job, every day is like a new like, oh, didn't know that.
Exactly. So we will do that, and maybe we'll figure out who maybe one or two other directors to make a little round table out of it. But before I hop and get into green screen brain.
Oh my God, go. Yes.
What would you tell your younger self right now? Like if you could go back and talk to Anu in the early 2000s, embarking upon an education in this industry, what, three things would you tell her to keep her eyes on the prize for?
I love this question. I think I would tell her to watch all the movies, watch movies, go to plays, be in your community, art space. I think at NYU, I didn't participate as much as I would have. I wish I had taken more craft classes.
Right.
I didn't take the camera classes or the lighting classes that I wish I had. And did I say read more? I would tell younger version of myself, fill the coffers up, because that is how you are you can't be an artist unless you got things to say. Unless you fill it all up, because I think there are things I didn't take advantage of enough, or I was too focused on I got to make my things, and I wasn't being a part of my community, listening to other people's stories. That to me makes you a much more valuable person.
Right.
And therein makes you a better and more valuable artist.
Right.
It's something I'm trying to tell myself now, because I'll start a book and I'll be I'm just going to go on Twitter. And then it's hours go by. And it's such a waste. It's just not a good way to be. But anyway, yes.
So there it is. This is awesome. No, I'm glad that we were able to begin the convo, and then I'll email you. We'll figure out a double back. And I'll be reaching out to you about that podcast that I kind of hinted at.
Yes.
That we're going to drop around the 21st of October. But thank you, Anu.
Thank you, Pete.
Next time, we'll continue the combo. I appreciate it. It's great seeing everything that you've been doing. It's dope. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Oh, thank you, Pete. And go off into visual effects land now.
What's up, people? This is Pete Chatmon. Follow me on Instagram and on Twitter via @PeteChatmon. Follow the pod on Facebook on our Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon official page, and hit up our mailbag with questions, suggestions, or hey, donations if you're feeling like it, via Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon @gmail.com. And just in case you need to know how to spell it, that's Pete with the last name Chatmon. All right, that was Anu Valia, episode 19 of the pod, and just want to thank her again for joining us, and also joining us under very, very, very short notice, because things were getting busy with the next project, which should be our next episode, which will be a very important craft episode, and not a conversation about craft, but an actual piece of craft, as far as something created by my team and I. So I've kind of hinted at this along the way for the past few weeks. What we're looking at dropping next week is a narrative podcast called Wednesday Morning that was written by myself and Candace Sanchez McFarlane. It is directed by me, and it stars Kelly McCreary, Spencer Garrett, Coleman Domingo, Blake DeLong, Joy Nash, Louis Ozawa, Elena Campbell-Martinez, Remy Ortiz, and Mani Ali-Ahmad. And this is a 2020 election podcast event. It's a season premiere and finale all in one episode, and we hope that you will not only tune in, but spread the word. Obviously, more details to come, but I'll give you just a quick little teaser. Wednesday morning, on the morning after Election Day, Janine Hamilton discovers that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. After losing a local upstate election, Janine pays a surprise visit to her father, Wesley's palatial estate. She unexpectedly finds herself at a celebratory brunch, surrounded by his duplicitous comrades as they engage in a dangerous game of political horse trading, leaving Janine to make a life or death decision before dessert can be served. It's, for my film aficionados out there, it's reminiscent of Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie with a little bit of Brazil. And for those who know my work, a little bit of Black Card. And I'm really happy about what we did. We pulled off something great. More to come, more details, but check it out. The website is WednesdayMorningPodcast.com. And we're really going to be looking to you to help spread the word so we can get this out to as many people as possible. So that'll be episode 20. Again, thanks for riding on this Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon podcast journey. And in the meantime, y'all, stay safe, stay blessed, and of course, spread love.